Good morning, all of you. So we are discussing carbon family. In the last part of the video, we generally discuss the general physical properties about atomic size, ionization energy, and electronegativity, density, melting point, boiling point, what is catenation, and what are the conditions required to show the catenation behavior, what is the general common oxidation states of boron carbon family we discuss. Now in this part of this video, we are continuing with the allotropes of carbon. Allotropy. So what is this allotropy? Let us start. Allotropy is nothing but it's the phenomena of existence of a particular element in many physical forms, but all those physical forms are showing similar chemical properties, and that phenomenon we call it as what? Allotropy. So here it is, I am writing the phenomenon of existence of an element in many physical forms. Many physical forms, but showing similar properties, and that phenomenon we call it as what? Allotropy. So in this carbon family, carbon having this ability. So carbon has allotropes, so many of allotropes. So and those are all allotropes. All those allotropes of carbon we are mainly categorizing into two types. What are those allotropes of carbon? We are dividing into two types. One is crystalline allotropes, and the second one is amorphous allotropes. Crystalline allotropes and amorphous allotropes. What is the difference between crystalline allotropes and amorphous allotropes? Crystalline allotropes are nothing but these allotropes are like crystals, like sugar. If you touch the sugar, you feel like crystals. Salt also. So as like sugar and the salt, these forms are crystalline in nature. They are rough to touch, so called crystalline allotropes. Whereas amorphous, if we touch these allotropic forms, we feel like powdery, okay, smooth. Okay, those allotropic forms we call it as what? Amorphous allotropic forms. And one more difference is in crystalline allotropic forms there was a long range of order of atoms. Long range. So there was a systematic arrangement of atoms, and that arrangement is for long range, for longer distances. But in case of amorphous allotropic forms, there was a short range order of atoms are there. Very smaller distances only, shorter distances only, these atoms have been arranged. Okay, these are the main differences. Next, under this crystalline allotropic forms, we mainly discuss diamond, graphite, fullerenes, and in addition to this, these are the three main crystalline allotropic forms. In addition to this, they have included two more allotropic forms. One is graphenes and carbon nanotubes. And these carbon nanotubes are mainly used in nanotechnology. Okay, these are the five crystalline allotropic forms. Coming to the amorphous allotropic forms, we discuss coal, coke, lamp black, and gas carbon. So these are the four main amorphous allotropic forms. And again, coal is nothing but charcoal. So this charcoal, again based upon their sources, three types of charcoals are there. That is wood charcoal, the charcoal which is coming from wood called wood charcoal. Next one, bone charcoal. So if you burn the bones, whatever the charcoal we are getting, that is called bone charcoal. Next one, sugar charcoal. So these are the three types of charcoals: wood, bone and sugar charcoal. Next, coke, lambda, gas carbon, these are the other amorphous allotropic forms. And here one point you should remember. So based upon the percentage of carbon present in the coal, okay, there was a four types of coals are there. That is peat, lignite, peat coal, lignite coal, and bituminous coal, and finally anthracite coal. There is a four different types of coals are there based upon the percentage of carbon. And in peat coal, what is the percentage of carbon? Here I am writing percentage of carbon. This is 60 percentage. Lignite is 67 percentage, and the bituminous is 88 percentage, and anthracite is 95 percentage. So they may ask you this question: among the different types of coals, charcoals, which charcoal having, which coal is having highest percentage of carbon? So that is what? Anthracite. So nearly 95% of the carbon present in this charcoal. So this is about amorphous allotropic forms. Now let us discuss the three main crystalline allotropic forms in detail. The first one, diamond. Yes, diamond is a very hard allotropic form. It's a very hard allotropic form of carbon. It's a very hardest one. Because of this hardest nature, we use this diamond to cut very hardest material like rocks, okay, and for cutting of tools. So these are some uses of diamond. So it's very hard. Next one, it's a case-like structure. Case-like structure. In this case-like structure, the carbon, each carbon undergoes sp3 hybridization. Very important. So in diamond, each carbon undergoes which hybridization? sp3 hybridization. If it is undergoing sp3 hybridization, what is the arrangement, structural arrangement? Tetrahedral. And total how many of bonds it can form? 4 bonds it can form. So because of its sp3 hybridization, each carbon connected to how many of other carbon atoms? 4 other carbon atoms. 4 other carbon atoms. In which manner? In tetrahedral manner. Tetrahedrally so these all 4 bonds are not in the same plane. So every carbon is connected with the 4 other carbon atoms in different planes. That is important. In different planes. Okay, so all 4 bonds are not in the same plane, they are in different planes. So this is the structure. And next one, each carbon is connected to how many of other carbon atom? 4 other carbon atom. What is the valency of each carbon? 4. So all 4 carbon atoms are involved in bonding formation. So all 4 valency electrons are involved in bonding formation. If all 4 electrons are involved in bonding formation, is there any free electrons? No free electrons. So therefore, no free electrons. Okay, if there was no free electrons, then it acts as bad conductor of electricity. So they may ask you the question, diamond is a bad conductor of electricity, but it's a good conductor of heat energy. So it's a good thermal conductor, but a bad electrical conductor. You may get the doubt. How it will be good thermal conductor? So remember one thing, to conduct the heat energy from one place to another place, it just need attachment, contact. Okay, in diamond, all carbon atoms are very closely packed. There was a clear contact between the two neighboring carbon atom so that it can easily transfer the heat from one place to another place. That is why diamond is a good thermal conductor, but it's a bad electrical conductor. Next one, because of its hard nature, the diamond has very high melting point. Very high melting point, and if you see the distance, Cc distance, the Cc bond length is nearly 1.54 angstroms. Why? Because it is an sp3 hybridized carbons. So definitely the Cc bond length is nearly 1.54 angstrom units. And what about the uses of this diamond? As I already told you, because of its hardness, we use this to cutting of tools. Next one, to cut the glasses also, for glass cutting. Next one, for drilling of rocks. If you go to the mines, there to drill the big rocks, they use diamond. Okay, in cartridge, drilling of rocks. And also bores also, for making underground bore wells, they use this diamond. And also to make the electrical filament that we use in electrical bulbs. Okay, for making filaments in tungsten filaments in electrical bulb. So these are the some uses of diamond. Okay, next allotropic form, that is graphite. So suppose if they ask you which among the crystalline allotropic forms which is most stable, thermally stable allotropic form, so that is nothing but graphite is most thermally stable allotropic form of carbon. So this is a stable allotropic form of carbon. Let us see the structure of this graphite. Generally, the graphite is it's layered like structure. Okay, how the layer, like one layer, next second layer, third layer, fourth layer, likewise layer by layer it will be exist. And one more thing, and each layer is made up with hexagonal rings. Okay, each layer is made up with what? Hexagonal rings. For example, you see consider this is one layer. Next, this is a second layer. So these are all one layer, this is the another layer. So layer by layer it will be exist. And between these two layers there was some weak van der Waals force of interactions. Some kind of van der Waals interactions are present between these two layers. Okay, so because of these van der Waals interactions, one layer can easily slide over the another layer. Just imagine this layer is this one and this layer is this one, and between these two layers, okay, weak van der Waals interactions are there. Because of weak van der Waals interactions, one layer can easily slide over another layer. Okay, so because of this weak van der Waals interactions, this graphite is used as lubricants. Graphite is used as what? Lubricants. Remember that. And in this layer, each one made up with hexagonal rings, right? So each carbon, so in graphite, each carbon undergoes sp2 hybridization. Very important. In diamond, each carbon undergoes sp3 hybridization, whereas in graphite, each carbon is undergoing sp2 hybridization. And if it is undergoing sp2 hybridization, okay, total 3 bonds only they are forming. So every carbon, each carbon is connected to 3 other carbon atoms. 3 other carbon atoms. If they are connected to 3 other carbon atoms, only 3 electrons are only involved. So each carbon having 1 free electron. So every carbon having 1 free electron. Because of having the free electrons, okay, they can easily conduct the electricity from one place to another place. That is why graphite is a good electrical conductor. It is a good electrical conductor. What is the reason? Because every carbon having 1 free electrons, but that free electrons are responsible for the conduction of electricity from one place to another place. That is why it's a good electrical conductor, but it's bad thermal conductor. It's a bad thermal conductor. What is the reason? Why? Because between one layer to another layer there is a space, but for the conduction of heat there should be contact. If there was a gap, they cannot be conduct easily. That is why because of the internal spaces, because of spaces between the 2 layers, the graphite is a bad thermal conductor, but it's a good electrical conductor. Next, if you see, so Cc bond length, the Cc bond length in graphite is nearly 1.40 angstrom units. 1.4 angstrom units, whereas in diamond 1.54 angstrom units. So this is about the graphite. Next, move on to the third one, that is what? Fullerenes. Fullerenes. So also we call it as Buckminster fullerenes. Also we call it as buckyball. So these are the recently discovered crystalline allotropic form. Buckminster fullerenes are recently discovered crystalline allotropic forms. Unlike diamond and graphite, the fullerenes are existing many forms based upon the number of carbon atoms. So actually the fullerenes are nothing but it's like a soccer ball like structure. So it is also case like structure, but it's a closed. So fullerenes are spherical case like structures. Spherical case like structures, and here each carbon undergoes sp2 hybridization. Remember that. Even graphite also sp2 hybridized, even fullerenes also sp2 hybridized. And based upon the number of carbon atoms present in that buckyball, okay, so there was a presence of C35, C50, C60, C70, C80 and until C540. Likewise, so many of fullerenes are present. Okay, C35, C50, C60, C70, C80 up to C540. Means here 540 carbon atoms are there in that structure, spherical structure. See, most of the among these all most commonly occurred fullerenes are what? C60 fullerenes. C60 fullerenes. So if you see the C60 fullerenes, C60 fullerenes, it's like a soccer ball like structure. It's a soccer ball like structure. You remember a code here, that is 26th of 2012. So here, what is this code indicates? That means in this C60 fullerene, in this soccer ball like structure, there was a total 26 membered rings. How many of hexagons are there? 6 membered rings, we call it as what? Hexagons. How many hexagons? 20 are there. So this 26 indicates 26 membered rings. Okay, next 2 plus 1 plus 2, 5. That means total 12 5 membered rings are there. How many pentagons are there? 12 are there. Very, very, very important. And this NEET 2020, this question they asked. Okay, in C60 fullerenes, how many of hexagons? 20 hexagons and 12 pentagons. And one more thing, and total 60 vertices. Okay, 60 vertices. And one more condition, 6 membered and 5 membered rings. Here one point to remember that a 6 membered ring can attach with another 6 membered ring or 5 membered ring. It has the flexibility. A 6 membered ring can attach with another 6 membered ring or 5 membered ring, but a 5 membered ring can only attach with 6 membered ring. That means a pentagon cannot be contacted with another pentagon. Okay, so these are the two conditions you should remember in case of C60 fullerenes. And the C540, the largest fullerene, that is C540, this is what we call as fullerite. Fullerite. Okay, so this is about the fullerenes. In fullerenes, fullerenes also we call as a Buckminster fullerenes. So in the name of Buckminster. Why? Because at the time of fullerenes discovered, the scientist Buckminster also discovered a type of geodesic domes, and they show the similarity with the properties of fullerenes. So that in the honor of him, we are calling these fullerenes as Buckminster fullerenes. In Buckminster fullerene, also called buckyballs, okay, also called Sacher balls. In this, each carbon undergoes sp2 hybridization. Most commonly occurred fullerenes are C60 fullerenes. In that C60 fullerenes, total 26 membered rings and 12 5-membered rings with 60 vertices. Okay, and a 6-membered ring can combined with a 6 or 5-membered ring, but a 5-membered ring can only combine with 6-membered ring. This is about the fullerenes. So next allotropic forms already we discussed along with this diamond, graphite and fullerenes. Suppose if they ask you the order of thermal stability of the crystalline allotropic forms. So the order of stability, that is already I told you, graphite is the most stable allotropic form. So graphite greater than diamond greater than fullerenes. So this is what order of stability. Remember that. Very important one. And one more thing, fullerenes. Fullerenes are the purest form of carbon, allotropic forms. Purest form of allotropic form of carbon is fullerenes. Most stable allotropic form is graphite. Hardest allotropic form of carbon is diamond. So these are the 3 allotropic forms of carbon. In addition to that, already I told you graphene and nanotube, carbon nanotubes. Carbon nanotubes are nothing but these are the tube-like, graphite-like tubes, having buckyballs at the ends. Okay, there was a tube at the edges of 2 tubes. Here one fullerene, here one fullerene. So that structure we call it as what? Carbon nanotubes. So recently the nanotechnology. So there we are using these carbon nanotubes in many ways for conducting of electricity, as what electrical conductor. So like so many as a catalyst also. Okay, this is about the carbon nanotubes. And one more thing, graphenes. Graphenes are nothing but simply say that a sheet of graphene. See, as we know, graphites are nothing but layer by layer. So if you take one layer of graphite, that is what we call it as a graphene. Okay, so in both, and one more point you should remember, in both graphite and fullerenes, the pi electrons are delocalized from one carbon to another carbon, and that are responsible for the conduction of electricity. So this is about the short story of allotropes of carbon. Next, the compounds of carbon. Compounds of carbon. Mainly two important compounds of carbon we discuss. Those are carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. So let us discuss these two compounds one by one. The first one, carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide. If in this carbon, general formula is CO. And if you see the preparation methods of carbon monoxide, we can prepare it from carbon, from coal or coke or simply carbon. How can we prepare? You take the coal or coke. Okay, if you react with oxygen, if you treat it with a limited supply of, so if you send the limited supply of oxygen to the carbon, we get carbon monoxide. Or else we can also prepare it from coal. How? When coal reacts with the air. As we know, in air, both oxygen and nitrogen, both are present as a main constituents of air. So when we treat the carbon with air, we get a mixture of carbon monoxide and nitrogen. And this mixture we call it as what? Producer gas. Producer gas. Remember that, it's very, very important. It's one of the energy source, as like water gas. Producer gas is also important. So the mixture of carbon monoxide and nitrogen is called what? Producer gas. But we need carbon monoxide. So to separate the carbon monoxide from this mixture, so you send this mixture through CuCl solution, copper chloride or cuprous chloride solution under reduced pressure, at a high pressure. So when you send this mixture through the copper chloride solution, so what we will get? We'll get a solution like CuCl CO with a 2H2. So like kind of a solution mixture will come. So under reduced pressure, CO gas will liberate. So this is about the second method, and this is the industrial method also. Industrially, if you wanted to prepare in bulk amounts of CO gas, they follow this technique. Why? Because air is the cheapest component of in world. That is why carbon, when we treat it with air, we get this producer gas. This producer gas, when we send through the cuprous chloride solution, finally we are getting carbon monoxide. And one more method, suppose if you wanted to prepare the pure form of carbon monoxide, okay, so then what we get? Simply by the dehydration of carbon methanoic acid, as we know, from methanoic acid. From methanoic acid, simply we call it as a formic acid. You take the formic acid HCOOH, okay, this on dehydration. I am using the dehydrating agent, that is what? Concentrated H2SO4. Concentrated H2SO4 having the high affinity towards water. So when you add the concentrated H2SO4 to the formic acid, it immediately removes H and OH from it, and remaining is what? CO, H2O plus H2SO4. So likewise, simply by dehydration, by removing the water from methanoic acid, by using the dehydrating agent, that is a concentrated H2SO4, we can prepare carbon monoxide. So these are the three best methods of preparation of carbon monoxide. Next, move to the properties of this. If you see the physical properties of the carbon monoxide, it's a colorless, odorless and poisonous gas. It's a colorless, odorless and poisonous gas. How can you say it's a poisonous gas? So the carbon monoxide has more affinity towards hemoglobin present in our blood. Suppose if you inhale a polluted air, that air is generally having carbon monoxide along with carbon dioxide. So if there was a carbon monoxide in the air, if you inhale that air, that CO gas present in the air will go and dissolve it in blood. Why? Because hemoglobin having more affinity towards carbon monoxide and they form carboxyhemoglobin. Okay, see that carbon monoxide mixed with a hemoglobin Hb, hemoglobin, we get carboxyhemoglobin, and this carboxyhemoglobin having more affinity. Carboxyhemoglobin is around 300 times more affinity than oxyhemoglobin, carboxyhemoglobin. If there was a more carboxyhemoglobin, then the oxygen transport capacity of our blood will reduce. With this, the oxygen levels in our blood will less. So automatically the person will go sick. So this is about the, likewise the carbon monoxide is a highly poisonous gas. Next one, it is slightly soluble in water. It is slightly soluble in water. Next one, if it burns, suppose if you burn this carbon monoxide, it burns and gives blue flame and liberates CO2 gas. So for example, CO plus O2, this on burning we get CO2. Okay, so this is a burning or heating. Next one, this carbon monoxide, suppose if it reaction with hydrogen, if you take reaction with hydrogen. So when carbon monoxide reacts with hydrogen, carbon monoxide reacts with hydrogen at high pressure and temperature. If you maintain very high pressure and a high temperature, so what happens? We get CH3OH. That is what we call it as methanol. Okay. So because of that only we are calling this mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen as what we call syngas. Syngas. Also we call it as what? Synthesis gas. Syngas or synthesis gas. This is the reason why we are calling this syngas. Why? Because we can synthesize many hydrocarbons and as well as methanol by treating this carbon monoxide with hydrogen. And one more important thing, that is when carbon monoxide, for example here I am writing, when n moles of carbon monoxide reacts with 2n plus 1 moles of hydrogen, we are getting CnH2n plus 2. This is alkane plus n moles of H2. So anyhow we are getting what? Hydrocarbon. Similarly, when n moles of CO reacts with 2n moles of hydrogen, we are getting CnH2n plus n moles of H2. But the condition should be, the pressure should be less than 50 atmosphere and there should be a metal as a catalyst, in the presence of catalyst, and at 600 to 700 kelvins. When you maintain these conditions, when we treat the carbon monoxide with these moles of hydrogen, we are getting hydrocarbons. Okay, so this is one of the best method for the preparation of hydrocarbons from the water gas or syngas. Next one, reducing nature, a reaction with halogens or simply chlorine. Suppose if you treat the carbon monoxide with chlorine in presence of sunlight or charcoal, anything in presence of sunlight or charcoal, when you pass the chlorine gas over the carbon monoxide, we will get a poisonous gas, that is what? COCl2. COCl2, this is what we call as phosgene. It's a poisonous gas, and this poisonous gas and this phosgene is used for the preparation of isocyanates. So this is about the reaction with the chlorine. Next one, oxo process. So what is oxo process? It is nothing but when ethylene, CH2 double bond CH2, when ethene reacts with a water gas, that is COH2, we get propanol, CH3, CH2, CHO. That is what propanol. Propanol. This method of preparation of aldehyde, higher aldehyde from the alkenes, we call it as what? Oxo process. And one more important process, that is what? Reducing behavior, reducing nature. See, if you see that reducing nature, so the carbon monoxide acts as a strong reducing agent. Strong reducing agent. That means it reduces the metal oxide. So when metal oxide reacts with carbon monoxide, it reduces the metal oxides to metal and itself undergoes carbon dioxide. Remember that. It reduces metal oxides to metal and itself oxidizes to CO2. Okay, for example, you take Fe2O3. When Fe2O3 reacts with carbon monoxide, we get iron plus CO2. So here iron Fe2O3 is reducing into iron. So this is a chemical properties of carbon monoxide. And one more thing, carbon monoxide is a strong electron donor. So because of its electron donating nature, when carbon monoxide is reacting with the central metal ions like transition metal ions, they forms carbonyl complexes, metal carbonyl complexes. For example, tetracarbonyl nickel. Okay, when nickel ions reacts with the carbon monoxide, we get tetracarbonyl nickel, pentacarbonyl iron, hexacarbonyl chromium. So likewise, metal carbonyl complexes will form. So these are some chemical properties, and if you see the uses in the properties only we are getting. So first thing is CO gas. The mixture of CO and hydrogen is called as water gas, and the CO plus nitrogen we call it as producer gas. The both are using as what? Industrial fuels. Next one, CO gas is used for what? For the preparation of methanol and some hydrocarbons. And the CO gas is used for what? For making metal carbonyl complexes. Why? Because carbon monoxide is a strong ligand. Because of its strong electron donating nature, CO gas is used as what? Is using for the formation of metal carbonyl complexes. Okay. Yes, we forgot the structure of CO. So structure of CO, if you see, it's a linear structure. It's a linear structure, and if you see the structure, so this is one structure, but in its resonating structures, if you see, if it donates this one, this is one structure. So this is another structure. These are the two resonating structures, and this is a more stable resonating structure. In this resonating structure, how many electron pairs are shared between the carbon and oxygen? Yes, in between carbon and oxygen, total 3 electron pairs between carbon and oxygen. Total 3 electron pairs between carbon and oxygen. And if you see the CO bond length, that is 1.12 angstrom units. Because of triple bond nature, okay, it's almost equal to 1.129 angstrom units. So this is about the structure of carbon monoxide.